Let's make some 1830s baby dresses. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I teach old-fashioned sewing skills. If you're new here, welcome. We make a lot of reproduction 19th century and some 20th century clothing. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And so yes, last month we made print dresses for the 1830s. This month we're going to do the pretty little white embroidered dresses. I have some very nicely done, not hand done, but nicely done cotton lawn that is embroidered. So we're going to be using this for the skirt. I have plans for an Ayrshire work 1840s baby dress at some point, but I started that like 3 years ago and it's still not done. So whether or not that will be done for any of my kids, maybe by the time grandkids come around. And then we'll make a plainer sort of gown as well, out of some nice cotton, I think this is batiste. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. Alright, I'm going to start with looking at the Workman's Guide, which is 1838. I don't typically like using it for 1830 stuff, where I try to at least document the stuff, pre-1838. Because 1838 is really more 1840s when you think about it. But a lot of this stuff is really good for 20s and 30s if you just document what you're doing. Okay, that's underwear. We've already done baby underwear. Alrighty. I like that sleeve, honestly. Here we go. That one I like. It's kind of fancy. I don't know if I want to do fancy work, but yeah, there's all sorts of pretty things in here. The first gown is going to be very plain. I do need to add something to the bottom. None of these are looking like the original that I'm trying to copy. What I want is that look, and I think I can figure it out. So let's get the plain fabric out. And I will start with, because there will be some good information in here. Where's frocks? Infant frocks, yes. Those for the rich are made in various ways among the following: the full body, which is what we're doing basically. The plain body will cut in one piece. The plain body with fronts and backs cut crossways around them. Alright, scale for the skirts. 2 or 3 breadths. I really do need to make a tape measure that's marked with nails. Okay, I can use my computer, it's fine. 16 nails. Didn't we say this is like 32 inches or something? Yeah, 36 inches. So 36 inches, but that's doubled. So I need it really to be 72 inches wide. This looks like it's 45 inch wide stuff, which is not really going to be ideal for my situation. It's not even, it's 41. I'm going to do 2 breadths. It's going to be a little bit too full, but not bad. And I'll be using the selvages, which is a period practice. 18 nails. That's going to be about 40 inches. 40.5. Look at me, my mental math. So this will give me a skirt. Now comes the fun part, which is the bodice. And I didn't like how not full it was before, so we're going to double. You know what? I'm going to make the whole width across here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to use the entire width of 40 inches across. The length of the body. Depth of body down the selvage. So let's go ahead and make it the 2, which would be 4.5 inches. All right. Down the whole length, because I did not like how not full my other body was when I made these last month. This, and then I'm going to fold it in half again. We're going to cut the armholes right here, which should be about a nail. No, it's like half a nail. Armhole, 1 nail. Oh, I'm looking at least one of these originals, and there's definitely a gusset underneath that sleeve. I just need to cut a slit down here, and it looks to be about halfway. Yeah, about that. About halfway. So like a nail long. We're gonna make the slit. Alright, that's gonna be my bodice for the first one. It's 20 inches. That actually measures right about correctly, if I remember correctly. Cool. So that's the length, is about 20 inches. It does not tell me how long to make the waistband. That's not helpful. Why would you give me one measurement and not the other? That's stupid. It's a pretty big waistband though. I'd say it's at least a nail. It's gotta be like an inch. No, it's gonna be an 1.5 inch waistband. So we're gonna cut it 2.5 inches so I have seam allowance. Now let's look into shoulder straps. This is going to be the fun part because this is not what the Workwoman's Guide says at all. Okay, the length of shoulder strap needs to be 2 1/4 nails, which is basically 5 inches. That actually seems like a really long shoulder strap. So that's how long the shoulder strap needs to be. And again, it does not tell me a width. Except, hang on. The length of the shoulder strap in the baby's dress is half of what it is in the woman's shift. So if I cut all these measurements in half, will it work? Let's find out. So 1 3/4 nail at its widest point. It's 4 inches. That's 2 inches across, sloped off to 3/4 of a nail. So that's 2 inches by 3/4 of an inch. So 2 inches at its widest point, because this is how wide it's going to be. So I only need this to be at its widest 2 inches. Okay, I'm going to fold this in half so I can better see, essentially, in my brain anyway. So 3/4 inch at its widest, and we're going to slope it off to there, so that this, when it's worn, can be folded this way to give myself that cute little look, I suppose. Okay, there's my shoulder straps. Sleeves. And I think that first sleeve that we saw was super cute. It's another variety of sleeve, very pretty for a young child. It is cut out in the first instance exactly like figure 14, after which is sloped off to the triangle, to the shape of a triangle below, so that the sleeve requires a triangular bit below, as well as on the shoulder for the sleeve to fold to or gather to. The bottom triangle should be cut with the band into which the sleeve is confined. Since I already have the triangle bit at the shoulder, I don't think I'm going to do the triangle bit at the top. I am going to do the triangle bit on the bottom. I think that would be super cute and still give me the look I'm going for. So that's like not helpful at all. So what it's saying is you go to the sleeve you want to make, which is this sleeve, right? And it tells you, okay, this is made exactly like figure 14. And so in my brain, I'm going, okay, cool. I'll go figure 14 to figure out how to cut the shape I want. Then you get to figure 14 and it says, this shape is exactly like figure 13. So now I had to go to number 13. Okay. I think my brain used to work better because this was hard work. My brain hurts now. What we're going to do is just make a plain-ish bodice. We're going to decorate it some ways, but make it a little bit more plain. So I'm cutting my fabric 60 inches long, and then as wide as my fabric will go, which I think is going to be a little bit of a shorter skirt from end to end. Because this is decorated, do I want to, how much do I want to gather it, is essentially my question now. Because if I gather it a whole lot, you're not going to see any of that. Alright, the camera battery is about to die on me, so very quickly I want to explain the sleeves. So there's a cap on the sleeves, which I cut out of the very bottom so it has that little scallop. And then for the sleeve itself, I don't have a good section of just plain fabric, but I'm thinking with this little embroidery on here, if I sew two of them in squares, make it twice as long, or wide really, I think that'll give me a nice size, so we can make like a really nice gathered sleeve like we did last month with the 2 poor people's dresses. Getting started with the sewing portion. So I started with the sleeves this time. Typically I start with the skirt, but for some reason I decided I want to start with sleeves this time. The embroidered ones are the super easy ones, of course. So it's just very simply in terms of I had a giant circle and I cut a smaller circle out of the center of it and then gathered it up, back stitch it on, turn the whole thing in to cover the raw edges, and whip stitch it into place. Now for the lace sleeves. The first step is to gather the whole thing, again, just like we did with the other one, and put it into the band. Just this time the band is shaped slightly to give that little V shape. Then of course I had to line the sleeve band, fold it in, hem stitch that in. In this particular sleeve, on the original, there was obviously a gusset underneath, so this whole sleeve pattern, after I cut it out, there was a 2-inch band. So I just cut a 2-inch little square, and that ends up being my gusset that we're going to put into the bodice again when we get the bodice done. Put lace around the edge. I'm just using a regular 100% cotton lace. Yes, there are ways to put in lace where you do the little pretty stitch that I am terrible at, so I'm just going to whip it in. For the embroidered one, I also had the little sleeve caps, and I think I'm just going to do a little gathering thread across it, that way I can kind of gather it up just a little bit, and that'll be all I have to do because the embroidery means it's already hemmed. I'm starting with the embroidered skirt, which thankfully has a lot of the work done because it is already hemmed necessarily. Also because I had to cut it down the selvage, which is not how you typically cut skirts because they do somewhat hang in odd ways when you do that with certain fabrics. But because of the embroidery, I had to cut it that way. It's already hemmed and I only have one seam to do. However, because that one seam in the back does not have a selvage, I do have to finish it. So I'm going to do a run and then a fell seam to finish this. I'm trying to streamline and like railroad this project, so instead of continuing working on the embroidered one, I'm going to do the side seams on the lace decorated skirt. This one I don't have to fill. I do have 2 running seams to do, but I don't have to fill any of them because again, they're selvages, which is how this is supposed to work, right? Now because there are 2 breadths, I don't want to have a center front seam. So I'm going to match the 2 sides and cut my 5-inch back slit in the middle of a panel and hem that up as well, which is a very simple narrow hem. I opted to do a 2.5-inch hem, which is about a nail, a little over a nail, because technically a nail is 2.25 inches, so 2.25 inches. And to put this on, all I gotta do is a whip stitch, which back then would have been called a hem stitch. And then I'm gonna put lace on the bottom. Today we like to frill our lace to make it nice and full. That's not necessarily historic practice back in the early and mid 19th century. A lot of the trims are put on very plainly, especially lace, which lace can be very expensive back then. And so you just set it on plainly. So lace gets set on just as before, just a little bit of a whip stitch. And then we get to start with the bodice. So I'm starting on the bottom of the bodice, and that is just putting on the waistband. So gathering the whole bottom of the bodice. The waistband, again, we cut 20 inches. So I'm going to back stitch that in all the way across. And then I'm going to back stitch the 2 waistband pieces together. Why this isn't a single piece that you just fold up, I don't know. But on the originals, I can very clearly see extra opaqueness, I guess would be the word. It's darker and a more brighter white on the top and the bottom where the seams would be. So there's clearly extra fabric there. So it looks like it's 2 pieces to me. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is where I'm at with the bodice right now. So I put in one sleeve with the cap. Very poofy sleeve, which is what we want, of course, it's the 30s. And I'm adding my drawstring in. I'm doing the same thing I did last time, which is instead of only doing the drawstring to the shoulders, I want to make sure that in case this is too big in the top, I want it, baby to be able to fit it all the way through. Even though the Workwoman's Guide does specifically say to only gather from the sleeves to the back, or put the drawstring in that way. All the originals I have seen do it all the way through, so I'm just going to copy what they actually did and not the theory of what you should do. Because that's what, the Workman's Guide and all that is, right? It's just, here's what you should be doing according to the experts. And then people sometimes did that and sometimes they did things differently. Alright, now I'm going to work on this bodice. And I guess I'm putting in sleeves first. I really don't know what I'm doing. So I have a gusset, obviously, so I can put the gusset in. And this seam gets run and felled. I also have a shoulder seam, or I have these things that I need to sew together, but I also need to put them in here. It's remarkably similar to the original 1830 chemise that I have, but that one I didn't have to, this was straight. It didn't have the triangular bit, And so it was really one piece I just folded over. This is 2 pieces, and that makes it a little bit different. So I'm hoping I'm not making a mistake by doing this first. I've gotten to a point in my sewing where I don't mind having to redo my machine work. If it needs to be redone, it needs to be redone. But I don't like redoing handwork. Also, I don't know why I put the gathering thread all the way down to the gusset, because I know the gussets aren't gathered. And I know our AC is loud, so I'm sorry for the background noise. I've been trying to sew around it, but I kind of want the project done, and I'm tired of waiting 5 to 10 minutes every time that thing decides to kick on. It is not quite 100 degrees Fahrenheit yet. I think it's supposed to hit that in a couple of days. So we're still in the upper 90s, but it's still hot. So my AC unit has been going off quite a bit, and I don't have time just to sit here and wait while it goes. So when that gets in, I do have this other one in already, so let me see what I want to do with this situation, because that needs to fit in here. I think what I need to do first is sew it right across there. And that's a very logical first step even when looking at the original, because they had it in one piece and so all you had to do is fold it over, but we had to make this one piece first because of the shaping. Okay, so that'll give me that little shape, which then can be folded back as desired. That's what I want. So I believe the next step is to sew it here, and this will be under stress and strain. I am going to use a backstitch. So now I gotta do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so still trying to figure out how this is gonna go. Obviously I sewed that in as we discussed on the front and back, so this is my little shoulder strap here. I'm having issues deciding how I want to do the drawstring, because there needs to be a drawstring, and even on some of these originals the top is so much more open and full than the waist is, and so there had to have been a drawstring there at some point. But because of the shoulder strap, it's not going to be very conducive to going all the way across. So what I think I'm going to have to do is do a drawstring in the back, and then do a separate one in the front that has a little tie in the center that goes like inside the bodice, much like the chemise. So I did find the original here. And so I kind of figured out, actually that's the side that's been mended. Where's this side that's still original? There we are. So it's... This she folded over twice, however, mine wasn't that wide, and so I am using a bias strip like we've done in the other dresses as well. So I did that first, I sewed that in, and then sewed it in between. It's maybe easier to show you just on what I did. So there's the shoulder strap, and then there's the bias bit, and it's sewn all the way through there, so that when I fold this up and over and do that, and I can take this and I can hide everything that I just did and make it all nice and neat. Stick that in there, and we're going to do several nice little passes just around, making sure that it is thoroughly sewed down. And we're going to just whip this in place. And I'm not sewing down the shoulder strap yet because I haven't sewn the sleeve in, which is going to be my next step, which I could probably already do. So I sewed partially that down. This is still gathered. I haven't completely sewn it down as evidenced by the pins, but I partially sewn it in. And so from the front it looks like this. Although I wonder if I should have to finish this because I'll have to put the drawstring in. Let's at least see if I can do it without. And this will need to be, of course, back stitched in. We'll see how it looks when it's done, but this is much harder than the other one. It's a lot more fiddly. There's a lot more, this is a lot more fiddly. There's just a lot more seams and moving parts to this one. So I'm curious to see whether the effort is worth it in terms of it looks a lot better than the first. And all this is going to be hidden inside when I hem stitch this part over top. And of course the AC starts up as soon as I get this done, and I'm about to turn it over and talk about the new spot, the new section, or the next step, I suppose. So that gets folded. So this gets now folded in, and all of that can just get shoved in there and covered. Honestly, the piecing looks really good. I should have actually made it pointed to where you could have seen like the point here, here, and here. That would have been very clever had I thought of that before at this very second. Well, let's sew this in. Alright, and now just continue all the way across. I don't think I can finish this yet because I haven't put the drawstring on the other side, so I'm just gonna take a few passes. But that is essentially how that's going to look. Yeah, I think that's quite adorable actually, and it can go this way or I can fold it back. And then on the inside it looks all nice and neat, no raw edges because there's felling, and then everything else is covered. So yes, I think I rather like that. That's exactly what it needs to look like. So I think I'll just finish doing this and I'll do the other side. Once I do that other side, we're done essentially for the bodices, and we'll just need to attach it to the skirts. Alright, so we got everything done. And yeah, in case you didn't see the packing for an event video, I found the realistic baby doll that I lost a couple years ago. I put her inside of a muff, I guess to protect her. I don't know. Anyway, we have her now, and she is dressed up in full 1830s underpinnings because I had an event where I was sitting next to a dress that looks like it was made into a maternity dress. And so I talked about, you know, pregnancy and clothing and baby clothing as well in the 19th century. And yeah, she's weighted just like a baby doll. So she weighs like 6.5 pounds or something like that. Anyway, so there's all the underpinnings that we made on a doll. So there's the petticoat, the shirt, she has on her pilcher, and there's a diaper under there, and a belly band as well. So full layer of underpinnings. Let's go ahead and put on some dresses. But you can see how much of a gap there is. So yeah, definitely needed to put in gathering here. That is a super long dress. Yeah, sometimes it's creepy how realistic that thing looks. What was really fun is going into the tote it was in, pulling a coat out and seeing just two little feet that looked extremely realistic. But a very long dress. So that's dress number 1 on a baby. So let's go put the second one on. Getting the adult dress just reminded me how many ties are everywhere. Which we did ties instead of pins. So pins would also be period correct. And the beautiful embroidery at the bottom. So there's that. With all the beautiful embroidery. Alright, I think the easiest way to compare them is going to be putting them both on hangers now. But you've gotten to see them how they look like on a doll at least. Alright, and there is the completed, or both completed dresses anyway. So they do look remarkably similar, considering one was a lot more work than the other. I don't know if the work was that worth it, honestly. I think if I were to do them over again, I would just do the simplified dress version twice. I'm glad I did the other one just so I could at least see how it's put together. And I've seen it on several originals, so I know, you know, obviously it's correct to do or whatnot. It is a lot more work, and on a hand stitch only time frame, that's a lot of work to go through. I think if I were to do them again, I definitely would just do the plainer version, but I am still happy we did the other one as well. I do like how much fuller the bodice on the left is, but that was because I cut it quite a bit wider than I have the other ones, because I knew I wanted it much fuller. So I am happy to see that. So that is another set of baby dresses done. So now I have all dresses from birth to 6-ish, 9-ish months, whenever they decide to start moving, done. The next set of dresses, we are going to make separate dresses that are basically the exact same thing but shortened for babies who are moving, because I don't plan on having just one child, and therefore I don't want to cut these up for shortening only to have another baby and have to remake them again. I think it's going to be easier for me to go ahead and make shortened dresses specifically. But that'll at least get us in clothing to 6 months, and we will come back and make, again, shortened dresses for once they start moving until they're about 18 months to 2 years old. Those dresses will carry them all the way through that. And then we can start working on toddler stuff somewhere down the road, although I do still need to make nightgowns for the 19th century, and cloaks, hoods, bonnets, that sort of thing. And at some point I do have to make up some shoes. I have patterns for those, and I have one made up. I just haven't actually finished the other one. Anyway, I think that's about it for this month. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.